123, LMNOP! Huh. There appears to be a sound lag. Hello? Just kidding, that was me. But we are live streaming all the way from Australia, so please forgive some technical difficulties along the way. Anyway, g'day there. Yes, you. Sitting there at home. On the couch, in your bed, on the floor, in the bathtub. In whatever spot you are perched, it is nice to see you. Days are weird lately. We can't leave our homes, can't see our friends, can't even go to the dentist. The last time things were this lousy must have been, I don't know, the Great Depression? Were you guys around for the Great Depression? Me neither, but I heard it was rough. After World War I, people lost their jobs, their homes, and their livelihoods because of a huge economic recession. It started in the United States, but the effects were felt all over the world. Here on the faraway island of Australia, businesses made most of their money by selling goods to other countries. So, when other countries didn't have the money to buy our goods, Australians were out of luck. I too was out of luck finding an authentic Australian didgeridoo in my quarantine, but I did happen to have this pink ukulele, just in case. Anyway, back to history. The farmers had an especially tough time. Many of them were World War I veterans who'd been given farmland by the Australian government. The farmland offered the veterans an opportunity to earn a new living harvesting wool and wheat. That dream was quickly crushed, and not only by plummeting world prices, crushed by the pitter-patter of 3-toed feet. See, we Aussies, we didn't get a break between World War I and World War II. No, not at all. Instead, we went to war with a formidable feathered enemy not found anywhere else in the world. The emu. Now I know what you're thinking, but no, this is not just a bird. It's the national bird of Australia. In Australia, we go big or we go home. And emus are bloody big. Who's ready for some fun facts about emus? The emu is the second largest bird in the world after the ostrich and can only be found in Australia. Emus can grow over 6 feet tall. That's larger than the average refrigerator. They've got tiny little wings, but they can't fly. They run at 30 miles per hour with strides 9 feet long and can jump 7 feet in the air. They're also excellent swimmers. Gee, Australia would do much better in the Olympics if we could just get along with our emu mates.
I'm an emu, maybe you heard, but I used to be Australia's national bird. I'm not a regular chick, kids, I'm full of surprise. I got 2 sets of eyelids on 1 pair of eyes. Check out these calves, you know that I got them on the Australian food chain. I'm not at the bottom, till one day I was running, making 9-foot strides. Searching for a snack in a field long and wide. My husband stayed back with the eggs for an hour. Here in Emu Nation, we put women in power. I was ready to eat, but a fence blocked my way, so I kicked that thing down. Weird flex, but okay. When a couple of farmers farmers obsessed with their bread said, "These emus are ugly, I want them all dead." Ugly, I laughed, that's a little ironic since humans use emu oil in their hair tonic. Maybe it's Maybelline Move. After using my oil to primp and to groom, they steal my eggs to decorate their living room. When money's involved, humans quickly forget any value we serve. They said, "Out, emu, get!" Now we don't get along, even though it is true that you just can't spell emu without me plus you. Shemu out.
Incoming! Flightless bird the size of a refrigerator!
Oh, looking at all these wheat fields makes me sick. Mostly because I cannot stop baking fresh, delicious bread. But I also miss the excitement of the battlefield. There's not much action out here these days. Who's making a ruckus in my wheat fields? Holy dooly, that bird's gonna be 6 feet 3 inches tall! Is that a flying refrigerator? But it can't even fly! Is that a flightless refrigerator? Or would that just be a regular refrigerator? According to my naked eye, that bird's running 30 miles an hour and jumping 7 feet in the air. I better call the police. I better call the Minister of Defense, George Pierce. This looks like a military matter.
These kinds of farmland rompings were happening all across Australia. By October 1932, 20,000 emus had appeared in Campion and Walgalen and were absolutely destroying our crops. They'd use their big strong legs to break through fences, eat what they could and leave the rest for the bunnies. They were such a nuisance that they were officially reclassified from the National Bird of Australia to vermin.
Mr. Pierce, sir, there's an urgent message from the farmers. It's about an enemy who is larger than the average refrigerator, has tiny little wings but can't fly, and might be our only hope of ever earning a medal in the Olympics.
Now, I could be wrong here, but it sounds to me like you're describing an emu.
Yes, sir. The emu population is wreaking havoc on the veterans' farmland.
Oh, those 4 veterans just went through a hard world war. The farmland is all they've got. We should do something to help them. Go brainstorm ideas and then get back to me.
We could throw stones at them.
That won't work. Emus can swallow stones and hold them in their gizzards to grind up food.
We could build an emu magnet and pull them into our giant force field.
We haven't got the funds. What if we threw them a surprise going away party? Kill them with kindness and give them the message that they should leave.
After a long and very thorough brainstorming session, it has become clear that there is only one way to fend off these flightless birds. Machine guns.
And so, on the 2nd of November 1932, Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery led troops to the Wheatfield battlefield. The Wheatfield battlefield. And so began the Great Emu War of 1932.
Fire!
Squawk!
They're everywhere! I don't know where to shoot! We're outmatched on the open plain. Gosh,
These emus are like tanks. Maybe the southern emus will be better, and if we sneak up on them, we'll surely get them.
From the very first day of battle, the emus proved their superior battle tactics. Each mob had its leader, always an enormous black-plumed bird who kept watch while the other birds nibbled at the wheat. At the first suspicious sign, the leader would give the signal, and dozens of heads would stretch up out of the crop. A few birds would take off, starting a headlong stampede, the leader always remaining until his followers reached safety. The humans, not so amused. So they tried to step up their game.
Get those emus! We've surely got them now!
They're everywhere, and now we're moving and they're moving and it's even harder.
Get out of the car, this was a very bad idea!
Boom! Headshot. 3 down, only took 30 shots. Let's go, baby.
In the first week, over 2,000 rounds were fired, and only 200 emus had been defeated. The press went wild when they got wind of the hullabaloo.
My fellow Australians, our country's finest farmers have been battling a pack of evil, hungry vermin. The enemy stands 6 foot 3 inches tall, towering over the average refrigerator.
Major Meredith, is it true that emus have tiny little wings but can't fly?
That is true.
Is it true that emus can run at 30 miles per hour, with strides 9 feet long, and can even jump at 7 feet in the air?
That is correct.
Is it true that the emu is the national bird of Australia and none of us should be at all surprised by its size or presence?
No comment. Please, hear our cries. The strength of this enemy is unprecedented. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, they could face any army in the world. They can face machine gun fire with the invulnerability of tanks. But we are Australia, and we will prevail ya. No one? Yeah, sorry, that sounded a bit better in my head.
Phase 2 of the war marked a great period of learning. The soldiers learned that emu feathers was so thick that they could be shot 5 times and still prance around like nothing had happened. The emus learned that there were some really grumpy humans who wanted them gone. Rude.
How's it going, Tony? Long time no see. Not too bad, Vinny, not too bad. Great to hear, buddy. So, Vinny, how about them humans? I know, right? Who do they think they are? I mean, hear me out here. Hear me out. First, these farmers come to our land and decide that they're going to put this random stuff in the ground. And then they have the audacity to try and put fences up to keep us out. Psh, stupid humans. Fences won't stop us. Exactly what I told my wife. But then when that random stuff turned to that sweet, sweet wheat, I mean, those humans might have just redeemed themselves. Sure, they may have taken some of our land, but at least we get to eat some of that good stuff. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. I mean, my bread has never tasted better. That wheat makes some fine bread dough, you know? You're telling me? With some fresh Vegemite? Mwah, that's the good stuff. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Okay, but anyway, things are going well, you know? They take some of our land, but we get the finest produce this side of the Pacific. It's not great, but we'll take it. Yeah, of course. But then after these humans have the audacity to come after us with these metal-spitting things they call guns. But, they can barely scratch an itch in my wing. Bird brains, if you ask me. Speaking of those guns, look who's coming. Let's grab the Vegemite and get out of here. See you later, my guy.
And so, after defeating only 1,000 of the 20,000 feathered warriors, the human soldiers withdrew their troops. Yes, you heard me right. The humans forfeited to the giant birds. I know, mates, bloody hilarious. Major Meredith made up all sorts of excuses about the threat of winter weather and whatever, but we all know the truth.
You guys went to war with some birds.
Yes, that is correct.
With machine guns?
That is also true.
And lost?
Well, you see, the weather was getting a lot worse, and it was time to harvest the wheat anyway. So we made a very strategic withdrew our troops. You see, these emus aren't like us humans. We humans fight wars with guns and plans and technology and strategies. These emus fight war with their instincts. They know when we're coming, and they know how to get away. They know exactly how many bullets they can take. It's like they can communicate with each other without language. Maybe these birds aren't such bird brains after all.
Major Meredith, are you saying that the technological advances of human civilization have gotten in the way of our natural instincts and created unnecessary conflict for us?
No, I'm saying that the Australian military is the greatest in the world.
So you defeated all the emus.
Well, no, but a good few of them.
Though they did defeat a good few of them emus, whose souls we mourn today. Major Meredith and the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery were the losers of the Great Emu War of 1932.
Aww.
Today, the land in Western Australia where the war took place is mostly human-free. The emu has been reinstated as the national bird of Australia, appearing on its national crest alongside the kangaroo. The emu is officially a protected animal under Australian law, meaning it is a serious crime to take an emu or its eggs from the wild without a license. Between 600,000 and 700,000 emus roam Australia today, inspiring awe in both tourists and locals. The emu has succeeded in claiming its territory in our physical and cultural landscapes. Bravo! State of the Emu Union! What do you know? I think I spot some now. We are live? It's happening?
We're live.
Fantastic! Thank you everyone for joining us. Oh my goodness, that was such a delight. I have had the tremendous pleasure of working with these artists and scholars this semester, thinking about making original performance and how we bring the tools of theater to this moment that we're all in together. So, we're going to have a little talk back. Thank you everyone for all of your participation in the chat. That was lovely to feel the audience collectively. We missed that in the theater. And the way we're going to do these questions is
It's happening?
first slot.
Fantastic! Thank you everyone for joining us. Oh,
Anyone who
and scholars this semester. Thank you.
Great, it's gone, right?
Thank you everyone for your patience with that as we deal with our technical difficulties. We are back.
As you can
We should be
see,
good.
the group got to tech through all of those incredibly complex cues. We did not get to fully tech through this part. Okay, so the way this is going to work, the first round of questions are going to come from anyone who is 11 years old or younger. And in the meantime, I'm going to start us out with a question, which is, why did you all choose this content to tell right now? And why did you choose to target young audiences for your experiment?
I can take that one.
Great.
So Getchell is saying Abbie the super SM. Round of applause for Abbie. So basically, we all got kicked out of Harvard. We were supposed to do a live show there in a theater. And actually the premise of our show was about what if coronavirus exploded everywhere and ruined the world and started an apocalypse. And then that happened and it was no longer funny, obviously. And so we had to totally reroute, and we were thinking a lot about kids at home who aren't getting live interaction with their friends, and parents who are struggling to figure out how to keep their kids entertained at all times. And so we said, we don't want to try to make some theater and take ourselves too seriously. We want to do something that sparks joy for people.
Awesome. It was really exciting to hear you all think through how to engage young audiences right now. You did a little research with young people that also informed your approach on this. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, I think my cousin Sydney is watching. Abbie, you want to share?
Absolutely. Because we've been thinking about a number of ideas for this. We had tossed around maybe doing something with the Wizard of Oz, maybe doing something with improv, but we didn't really know. And we got to talk to Sydney, who was absolutely so helpful in just telling us what is on kids' minds right now and what is actually interesting. And at one point, the idea of doing something about the Great Emu War had actually been on all of our mind, but more as a bit than as an actual thing that we were going to do. And when we were talking to Sydney, at one point, Brian mentioned the Great Emu War, and she was like, "Oh, wait, what's that?" And
he was like, "A war with emus?" We were like, "That's the show."
And there was something lovely that I heard via you all that Sydney said of that as much as entertainment, people are also excited for school and feeling like there's some idea of information also being shared as people navigate this moment of what does it mean to be home and learning all at the same time. So anyone who would like to put a question in the chat box, feel free to put a question in the little comments chat box on YouTube, and you could include your location if you wanted to. That would be delightful. And if you guys have any questions for these folks, they will get texted to me from Cheyanne and Hazel, who also collaborated with us, and then I will read the question, and then
the question will get answered. In the meantime, I will ask you all another question. So you made all this original content so quickly, and you had to think about moving all the tools of theater into this medium. So I have a few questions about that. One, I'm interested to hear, oh yeah, there we go, green screens. I want to hear from Abbie, who thought about the tools of stage management in this moment. And the second question is for Brian, because this piece thinks about a moment in global history where we were in a financial crisis around the world and a national crisis, specifically in Australia. And since you think about statistics and finance, it would be fun to hear about your thinking about this material. And we have some questions coming in too. So take those away and then I'll read one of these.
Want to go first, Abbie?
Sure. So the most visible thing that I can show you is I have these two cards. One says stand by, one says go. And this is what we have been using in rehearsal and performance for the last few days as we've been teching through things. Because the most challenging thing about the software that we're using, which is called OBS and is great for some things, less great for other things, is that all of the media that is everywhere in this show, whether that's sound effects, whether that's animation, music, or what have you, I can hear all of those things through how I've set up my own monitoring, but Brian and Sarah cannot see or hear anything. So we've been here in this Zoom call this whole time, and I have my OBS window capture with the Zoom speaker view. And when it's time for me to switch the window on OBS that everyone's seeing on the live stream, I hold up the standby first, and then I hold up the go, and then they know to say their line. And for my own purposes, I've been working off of a calling script that is very similar to the kind that I would have for any ordinary show, with numbered cues for video, Zoom, sound, and graphics all aligned.
Amazing. And Brian, I'm actually going to interrupt with a different question that has just come in. Let me find it. This is from a 9-year-old in Arcadia, California. How did you get inside the tank?
How did I get inside the tank? Okay, this is actually kind of a fun one. So my dad's work, they ordered bandanas so that they could like use them as masks and stuff, just because like they don't have access to like N95s and stuff. So they ordered bandanas, and I found this green bandana lying around the house. And so what I decided to do is I said, okay, we have a green bandana and it works with the green screen. So what we can do is let's put up a virtual background. Let's do the speaker one or the tank one. We've got the tank here, and this green bandana matches the green screen. So it'll pick up the green screen image. And so what I did was I basically just knelt down and then put up the green bandana.
Very, very successful. We have another question. Let's see, where is it? Question. Is there a moral to the story for humanity? That is from Audrey.
Thank you, Mom. Yeah. So Australia has a long, complicated history with between the humans and the wildlife there. And I think it's actually so amazing that they tried to like eradicate this species from their land, and the species was literally like no, and the humans lost. And I think so I don't know if there's a moral, but definitely some messages from nature about us letting it run its track more and not ruining our planet with our greed.
Also,
there's something that go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, also there's the message that, violence doesn't solve everything. It a lot of the times just exacerbates problems. So, yeah.
Absolutely. there's also something, people write how information moves in our world. People write how history moves in our world. And there's this way that your storytelling shows the bones of how history gets told, and that is a construction made by people. And I think that's such an awesome thing for everyone to think about, especially for young people to get to think about, that we write history, we write the news. That is content that gets generated, and it helps us be strong, critical, analytical thinkers to understand that human hands are in all of that content. Ooh, we have some more questions. Here we go. Says, I'm a playwright in San Diego. I'd love to know more about your tech process and how long it was.
Oh, I could talk about this. So, for one thing, our tech process was one tech rehearsal shorter than it otherwise would have been, because on the day that we were supposed to start tech, my dog decided it would be really funny if she ate a bottle of Tylenol. So I was at the dog ICU for the first, what would have been 4 hours of our tech process. In terms of how tech itself has manifested.
Dog is okay.
Dog is okay. Dog is great. Her name is Zelda. She's beautiful. But we started ingraining various tech elements within probably the last 2 weeks. And we would rehearse for about 3 times a week, 2 to 3 hours per rehearsal, usually running it once, working on OBS. And when we had people such as Kaneza, such as Shay and Ian, who were so helpful throughout this whole process, such as Chris, in to watch, we would actually send them to a live stream link that was private, and they would see a live stream of basically all of the media that we had to that point. We didn't have everything up until about, honestly, last night, because things just shift so fast in this kind of framework, the same way it would in any other kind of show. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned about teching things that look like this is that you kind of are 100% convinced it's not going to work, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to work, and then it works. And the more you can use these tools, the more clever workarounds you have, the better. OBS is a platform that's built for people who stream games. It's not built for theater. And there isn't really, at least to my knowledge and from my research for this, a platform that is for theater. But there are ways to get these platforms to work for theater, whether that is knowing that a sound cue needs to be a media cue that is like visual media at the same time, which is something that I'd never run into, or the fact that a sound cue can't continue on for multiple scenes or cues. And it's all about getting into the figurative room as soon as possible and working through all of these things and figuring out the clever workarounds for all of these things, because though these tools aren't necessarily built for us, they can work for us. And maybe within the next few months, someone will make a tool that's built for us. I would love that.
And, I think also that part of what's been exciting is to bring the tools that we have to this. And one of the tasks that the group had, and they really only had about, 3 weeks to shift from our plans for making live work that was going to happen in a beautiful theater on the Harvard campus into translating the core parts of the research into this new platform. So it was really 3 weeks that the group had to kind of think about this shift. And the thing that I really asked that they hold on to is, what does liveness mean now? And what does it mean to bring our tools to this platform? We're in this moment where the world is colliding on this very local level of, do I know my neighbor's phone numbers? Where is their toilet paper? And on this massive global level where we are all implicated in a huge global crisis together. And theater has always thought about that intersection of small groups of communities asking big questions about the world. And so I'm also very excited for what tools Jolene has as a playwright to bring to this form. Also, we have some more questions coming in. Great. There is there's one that says, "How did you all prepare those sweet Australian accents?" And we have another one that says, "Who thought of doing the Emu War? Was it inspired by your study abroad, Lisa? And there was a little answer in that earlier, but feel free to jump in with both of those questions.
I'll take the Emu War question. So, and I can do the Australian accent. So, for the Australian accent, Sarah studied abroad in Australia, so she knows the Australian accent pretty well. For my accent, that was not an Australian accent, I'm pretty sure. I think it was Scottish, but it worked, I guess. I don't know. I just wanted to use accents because I thought they differentiated characters well and just hope for the best. As for the Emu War, this was something that I had heard about a lot and I thought was the funniest thing. I think I saw some memes about it on like meme pages or whatever. And I just thought it was hilarious that a bunch of humans with machine guns went up against emus and lost. And I kind of pitched this idea like as a joke, but then Sarah knew a lot about it. And so she was like, well, this could be really fun because like she had studied abroad in Australia with all of the emus and stuff like that. She had some good stories to tell. So we just kind of fell into it, I think, when we realized that that would be the most fun thing for us to do. Because theater oftentimes comes from fun and, enjoyment. And so this was something we thought we could really, really enjoy. So we thought we would run with it.
And from my side of the table, one thing that was very fun to me about the fact that Brian brought this up is that Brian studies statistics and Brian thinks about finance and thinks about how the economy influences our stories and how do we think about the stories of this moment and where they're leading. And so picking a story that lived in a moment of global economic crisis and talked about humans encountering a crisis was a fun way to merge the thinkings that all of these young scholars and artists are working on. Let's open it up. If someone has one last question, we will take one more. And one of the things, just to go back to, it looks like Jolene had another question about what were some of the biggest challenges you faced while doing this from different locations. One of the things that, before we close out, I do want to say and then let them answer that question is, it's a tremendous amount of work, like making theater. And I want to thank you all personally for the delight and laughter and pleasure that you have given all of us in this moment and the amount of labor that went into making that possible. So thank you all for that. And if someone wants to answer that question, and then we'll see if we have a last one.
Yeah, before we go into that, I actually want to flag the part that there is one very important face in our team who is not here right now, who is Evangelos Kassos, who is one of our other group members, and who, because we are all in different places with radically different lives, was unable to make the live elements of the performance today. So you saw his face, and that was a video cued by me. Along with the videos of my face, which were also not live, but everything else that happened today was live, and that has been something we've thought really intensely about throughout this process. And I don't know if...
And I think, Abbie, what you're saying is so important too, because one of the challenges that we're all taking on is complicated things about our housing, complicated things about our emotional lives, complicated things about staying healthy in body and in mind. And so I would say that has been a huge challenge, and figuring out with the situations that Evangelos was handling in his own housing, how to incorporate all of the artists together. I think that's the biggest challenge, is how all of us are finding our way through the ups and downs of this moment and figuring out what allows us to show up for each other anyways. And I think that is a huge part of the tool set that gets one through. And finally, we have, well, now we have two questions. We're gonna keep going. If anyone has to leave us, we understand, but we're gonna go ahead and take these last two questions. One of you made an emu sound. Was it authentic? Do they really sound like that? That question is from Matt.
Yeah, Abbie made the beautiful sound that you heard. Unfortunately, emus actually make kind of low drumming sounds and grunting sounds that didn't have quite as effective a dramatic impact.
You actually heard what an emu sounded like on the first time that you see the image of the emu that's not an animation. He's an actual emu. You hear the emu sound, but it sounds like static. But in fact, that is what an emu sounds like. No, the squawking was something that I was doing in rehearsal to help cue them a long time ago. And we decided it was funny, and so it stayed.
Great. And we have one final question to land on. The question is, can you talk about the aesthetic design? The question is from Deborah, and I will add into that you all had the wildly ambitious notion of having original animations in 3 weeks in order to work in relationship to animations that you all guided and generated. So yeah, with that idea in mind too, can you talk about some of the aesthetic design choices?
Yeah. So obviously we knew that this was going to be a show primarily for children and young adults. So we wanted to go with something that would seem fun and exciting to them. And so with a lot of the, source material we got and stuff like that, we looked for cartoons and animations that we thought would be funny. So a lot of us grew up with Hank Green and John Green's crash course videos, and they're animated in a very, very similar style. And we thought that was a super fun style for learning because it made the learning much more enjoyable and exciting for people. So we kind of wanted to have that animation. And we also, we had real images in it and decided that it would be better if they matched the regular animation style. So that's why our American Gothic painting is an animation styled American Gothic and everything like that. So we really like that animation style. So we thought that would be super fun for children to go with. Sarah?
Yeah, take it.
And we actually had the awesome opportunity to work with Grace Wong, who's an artist based in Hong Kong. And originally we were like, okay, we can make animations. And so we started downloading these apps and trying to animate stick figures, and they were terrible and will never be revealed. But we basically got to storyboard the scenes that we wanted, and then Grace was able to make them beautifully for us. So that was very cool to see our ideas come to life like that.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Grace is actually in New Zealand, so she also does have a little personal connection to the part of the world that was being talked about, which was fun to feel her hands in the work. The other thing that we talked about in our class a lot was the history of performance score and the traditions of avant-garde thinking that have led to some of the tools in theater today. And that theater is always about a kind of hybridity. There are so many different kinds of artists who work on theater. People who think about light, people who think about sound, people who think about words, people who use their bodies. And there's a tradition of thinking about everyday objects that comes out of the American avant-garde. And one of the things we used as a parameter for making the work was that we would bring in some tech elements. We would figure out how to get these green screens into people's homes so we could work with that technology well. But we also wanted to lean into the aesthetics of being at home and using the tools that we have to tell stories.
I happen to have all of the wigs.
Awesome.
So I didn't really have anything to put my lights on. So I ended up using a stepladder, a clothing rack, and the back of my piano. So just bizarre things. I used a bookcase to prop my computer on, my couch as a prop table. We just kind of worked with what we had. It was an adventure, but, it was fun to do.
Wonderful. And one final question to sign us out, since this gave us great pleasure in our viewing. The question is, who wrote the rap? That was so fun. That's coming from Malika in Maine.
I don't know if you're pointing the way you think you're pointing. But,
yeah,
I am. It's my screen.
At the beginning of this, I'm a lyricist, and I had kind of wanted to throw rap in, and I wrote this rap yesterday. The emu used to have a monologue, and I decided that she should rap. And so I did a little ditty and threw it together.
Well, we all enjoyed it very much. Thank you all for your work and your playfulness, and for putting together a proposal that addresses this moment and addresses the tools of the theater. And I hope that everyone who joined us continues thinking about whatever love you have for live performance, or whatever tools you have around live performance, how you can bring them into this moment, because I think all of us are hungry for human contact. And thinking about theater is one of the places we think about human contact. So we need your skills. Bring them into the world. Thank you all so much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.